Hey there, students across the world. My name is Mr. Dave, and I am actually doing a database of the November 2023 for the Edexcel ICT paper. All right, let us dive into task A2 of the database. It starts with information about a person called Clara, where they have already collected some information about companies' fitness classes, and there will be a file called database fitness, or a database file called fitness that has three tables, which has the name, classes, clients, and booking. Now, these will be the information that will be present in the databases table, and one of the criteria will be some of these names of the table itself. And we will begin by manipulating the file before question or task A2A, where they ask us to have a scenario where Clara wants to use a form and then add bookings to the booking table. And they ask us with a gray out instruction to open the fitness database. Now, I've actually extracted the file that I want to already and placed the fitness table in a examination folder at the desktop location. Now, whenever you do practice, of course, you can put any location that you want to, but it's always best for you to put it in a examination folder where your examiner or your teacher is able to easily copy and compress and send it to your examiner. So make sure you do extract them correctly, put it into a examination folder that is easy for you to gather your evidence. So I've already extracted. If you have not extracted, like for example, there is a compressed folder right over there. Just make sure you extract it using this feature. If you're using Windows 11, select extract, and you will be able to extract it into a new folder where you can make changes and save it correctly. Now, since I've already extracted into my examination folder, I'm just going to go ahead to open a new original source file of fitness. If you see this, don't worry, just cancel it because these files are downloaded from online anyway. And this will be, if you double click all of them right over there, you will be able to see that these are booking classes and clients info that you can actually exert the data in between. All right, so when you actually do this, you are actually here where you open the fitness database. Now, task A2A, that's the first thing we're going to start doing, is to create a form for the booking table. Now, whenever you see a form, I prefer to use a form wizard rather than a form design because this gives me a guideline. That's my style. Perhaps your teacher taught you something different. But my style is I advise my students to use a form wizard because form wizard will help us to keep the design within the A4 or landscape or portrait format. So I would advise my student to open up the form wizard, and then when they see this, they should actually refer to where the question asked them to do, where we need to create a form for the booking table. So if I head back to Access, where you see these mini table queries kind of thing, make sure we select the booking info or table. Now, if you want to make sure that this actually is the booking table, you can actually view it because it's now I click that and it's view on clients. That's why it automatically selects clients for me. But if you want to prevent yourself to have that step, you can just select the booking, then the form wizard where you have the table booking available shown here in the menu. Now, when you actually do this, you can now check the question one more time to see that whether or not there's any requirements, which is not. That means that this question just asks us to create a form for the booking table, and I'm going to just say that we can safely transfer all of the selected fields or available fields into the form so that we can include everything inside. And once here, we just click next. And the question didn't ask us what kind of form that we can use or do. I just like my students to use a columnar rather the other design. So I just asked them to just move next. And this is where they have to be careful before they move on to the next question or the next menu, where they should be able to see that they need to include a clear title called the class booking form. All right, so since we're doing this digitally, why not just copy and paste from here and paste the info where we enter the class booking form correctly. And once we're done, we can just click on finish. And the benefit of using a form booking or form wizard is that the title will automatically be designed for us when we enter the text in the menu just now, and we have the size correctly shown for us right here. Okay, now I will then go back to this one because we actually did this one due to when the menu asks us to include the title. I will try to do this, include the logo you created in task A1A. I did this nicely for my students to actually I actually did this for my students so that it's easy for them to include a logo of the EWF, though I didn't really name it correctly, but it's still the logo we'd have to enter here. So here we just need to move on to the design view, where we can easily design the logo right on the top left. Now, there are two ways of doing this. However, when I try to insert this feature logo here, because the issue with my picture is that it's gonna be really, really huge sometime. Sometimes it doesn't, but right now here, my logo actually fits well over to the top left of the image, but sometimes my students will actually have the issue where the logo actually is too large for that. And then it's going to be over and above right here, where it just overlaps the image. So I don't prefer using that one. I would prefer to use the image box right there. So I'm going to just undo here where I'm going to use the insert image actually. And then I'm going to just click insert image and browse so that I use this logo. I'm just going to gently create a little box right there for the form header so that the logo actually creates within the sizing that I want. Because if you don't, I have my students who just click once and the whole entire form would be too big and the header will be enlarged. And this is something that we do not want to do. So I will have students to carefully create a small box before they click the image. And since this one we have done here, include a logo already, we need to include it to the top left of the header. Now the top left of the header is slightly easy, but it's not obvious. So later you just need to just drag that form box. And you can drag the image right over there, and then we can place them in the top left header without overlapping the image right there or the text that we have by using the logo feature. So that is me. I don't recommend using that one because it actually creates, I don't like to handle that. And for me, I do the insert image because this is much easier for me to navigate the boxes. And that's how I will do these two things. And we will now modify the class booking form title using a serif font. Now, serif font, I taught my students that by default, they should use a Times New Roman font. Serif font literally means font with extra lines or stroke. And if you see if there is a choice, you can just use Arial. And for this instance, this is by default by the computer gives me an open sans detail kind of font that does not have, if I zoom in using my video right now, you see that these fonts does not have an extra stroke. So for sans serif font, I would have students to choose this by default, easy to remember to make sure they use Times New Roman, which have some extra strokes in the font. Now, I'm trying to zoom this into the video so you can see that this B actually has an extra font or strokes. All right, with that, we have accomplished this particular task on serif font, and we can go on ahead to now format it to dark background and white text. Now, dark background and white text is simple. I just need to select this box. Some students will like to change the entire form header to a dark background, which which is not really ideal because this is actually a text box for me. I can just select that with a dark background now and then change that to a white font. That's primarily it. But sometimes some students they panic or then they change the entire background without selecting the box, and then they just make the whole entire header with the dark background. They are not wrong, but I would like to just do that because there's a text box here anyway. Okay, now we are done with these points, and then we can now move on to the field headings, making sure that its width is 3 centimeters. Now, my students often confuse what are fields. They thought that when they look at this, they think that this is the field heading because there is a word there called header. Now, field headings are actually the column names inside the table. So if you look at the booking, here is fields. These are the field names of things, and this will be like the field headings. And if you take a look in the layout view, actually, this is actually the value, and this is actually the column headings or the field names. So henceforth, when you move into the design view, these will be the field headings and these will be the value. You select all of these, and then I would prefer students to go into form design, open up property sheet, and then they will have to customize the width right over here. And I have some students who have these kind of experiences where they can't see the centimeters as the measurement when they change that. They have inches, they have some kind of speech marks. That's because maybe your devices has installed an American region or your country's region's measurement. So you've got to make sure you change that to the UK because this exam is the UK. Just ensure that your computer settings, regional setting is changed to the UK one. All right. And with that, you have actually accomplished this particular task right here. And now we can include an instruction on the form that says, please check before saving. Now, with that, you can now go back to Access. This is actually very simple, where we need to include a text inside the form. It didn't say anywhere, but I would like my student to do it at the bottom of the form as a reminder after a person enters the details. And sometimes it's very, very confusing because they say enter text, and most students will see, okay, where can I enter the text? And they will get confused when they ever hover their mouse over to the top. They see a text box right over there and select that and draw. And this is actually not a text box that you can enter something. This will allow only the user to enter as a text box in the form. So we should actually use the label. I'm going to draw a nice little space there so that the label, actually when I click somewhere that is being removed. So I'm going to draw a little here, right here at the bottom, and then just going to type something first. Please save, what was the info? Please check data before saving. Please check data before saving as the label box there, like an instructional warning to somebody. And then I'm just going to nicely and gently adjust that little menu and then place that right over there so that it looks nice. Now, my students sometimes put it at the top, they put it at the bottom, they put it on the right. And the question didn't really say where you need to put them. Just make sure you just put it in the form and that's it. Yeah, but perhaps put it in the detail. And if you want to check how that looks like, you can go to the layout view or the form view to see how the label actually is. All right. And that's about it for this question. And you can now follow the crucial instructions before moving on to the next one. Now, they ask us to save the form as booking_form. Now, this is not the database that you need to save. You need to save this form as the class booking, as class_form. I have to do that by actually renaming the form right here. I'm going to close this because Access doesn't allow us to change the name while the form is open. So I'm going to make sure that I close that, click yes before I make to make them save the changes that I made. And then what I will do is rename this, okay, to according to this requirement, which is booking underscore form. All right. I need to just make sure I remove that thing because I don't want to make any changes there. Um, yeah, here we go. I want to copy and paste this so that it's easy for us to move on forward with since we're doing it digitally. All right, so now I've actually saved the form as booking underscore form. Now, even though that doesn't looks like it's being saved, but although my form name right now is actually booking underscore form, and we have the form here. Oh, I just realized this follows against the title, so that is the name there. All right. Now, once we're done, they will ask us to screenshot of your form in design view to show that you have set the width of the field headings to 3 centimeters. Now, this is really crucial because this is where you will be marked as during the when the examiner marks it. So they asked us to go into design view to show where we apply the 3 centimeters width right over there. Oh, I just realized that this doesn't actually change. Yeah, I should change this to 3 centimeters, which previously I should be doing. Okay, and then right now that width is already changed. I have to make sure I screenshot, but not the whole thing, but screenshot the form and showcasing that I've actually applied these 3 centimeter width right over there, and then paste that inside the evidence file, which is a file called evidence, which is in your source file they should have. I have it saved here. I'm going to open this and then just enable this thing because, it's downloaded from the internet, and go to A2A and place only one screenshot because here it just gives the instruction to only put one screenshot and that will do. And the way that I screenshot just now actually shows that this view heading has 3 centimeter width and I've accomplished 6 out of 6 marks. Now I have the mark scheme to look at. So after I am done, I'm going to just put this and transfer over this to the PowerPoint to give you a comparison of how I've accomplished this. Now, so right here, if you take a look, do I include the logo from task A1A? Yes, I do, because I have this little logo right over here. Oops, right over here. And you can see that I included that. And then this examiner give me 1 mark. And then I have logo position on the top left of the header, which I do as well. So I got 2 marks because I put it in the correct position. Some of my students didn't put it in the correct position, so they will lose that mark right over there. So do be careful, you do. All right, now this one, spelling needs to be exactly what it is, class booking form and under a serif font. So if that is being done correctly, which I did right here using Times New Roman, I have the points right there. Okay, now moving on to this one, is my title white and on a dark background? Yes, it does. So I have 1 mark and all of the views right here, I can screenshot with evidence. I have the width and I also can show the difference that this is 3 centimeters being actually applied to the box of the view heading, which I do as well. So I get 1 mark for that. And finally, I do have the text box, which shouldn't be a text box, should be a label right there and says please check data before saving. It's really confusing, but the right one is label and not the text box that you see just now. All right. Now, why I say that before we move on to the question, I just want to show you the difference between this and this, because when you use a text box, it's actually say unbound or whatever. So if I actually just type this, please check data before saving, this is generally a text box for your user to enter, but it's not a label to show it on your screen. even though the questions say enter a text box, but it confuses you, it tricks you, and you go on to the layout, you literally can't see what you have typed into that box. So this is literally not the text box that you need to use. Rather than that, you use a label. So I'm just going to back to design view and then undo everything. Now you know the difference between the data, the text box, and the label. So, all right, so if you need to take a little break, you can pause the video. If you want to continue on, I'm gonna do task A to B. Great. Now, this particular one is really straightforward, and I hope you've taken your break already, so we're going to go on to A to B right now. Now, A to B is just 2 marks, and it's really straightforward if you have created the form correctly. Now, the form looks like this if you already have done it, so I forgot to minimize that. So we have to make sure we go to the form view. Don't go into the booking or the booking table and then just add it right down below here. That's not where you should, because I had students actually who've done that, go into the bookings table and enter info. And a very crucial thing to know that when it comes to a form, you have all the info right over here at the bottom where there is 65 records according to this data table here, because they have already 65 here. And therefore, it's a crucial information that you should know that these are 65 records. You can actually create a new one based on the question by doing these 2 things, because my students don't know where to click sometimes. So I would just make sure before they enter anything there, they should create a new record, or using this one here at the bottom. I prefer to do this. And then I just need to enter the info that is here, which is BK66. I'm lazy to type because I'm doing this on the computer. Why not use the copy and paste feature? Paste that info there. And then client ID right over here, we have math 000996. And going back to access, place that info right over there. I have an extra space. I gotta make sure I remove that. And then class ID, which is mobile. And go back to access and paste that info there. And with that, I have a nice little record. I want to save the record, making sure that I have 66 inside right now. And then that will be my new record. And what I need to do right now to showcase that I've actually done that the form has completed, and I saved the table as well and the form. Take a screenshot of this form showing that I've done this, and go back to the evidence file in A to B, paste that little thing right over there showing that I've done this. Follow the question by saving the table, which is here, because it didn't ask us to save the form, it asked us to save the booking table, which we did. All right, to save that info there. And then we paste that screenshot into the evidence, which I did, and then save the evidence right there. And that's about it. We are actually done with this particular info. But I do notice that the form did not actually save the data into the booking. Maybe I need to refresh all. Yeah, then the table is actually, the info for that form is actually being saved in the table. Well, you don't really need to do that in the examination, but I want to make sure my database works exactly correct. So I just got to make sure that that's refresh all, and the info, the new one, is being placed there. I had literally a student screenshot this one and put it into the evidence file, but you should not have done that, because if I've actually just show you this entire um, mark scheme for this, I'm just gonna place that here as an evidence, just to show you the difference. All right, so I'm just gonna minimize this one, and here we go. So if you just want to look at the mark scheme, it's just a very simple thing like that. where they want to see whether you have applied the correct entries, which you did. If you have done this, I have the same exact details, and then I just get 2 marks because there's all three correct entries, and this would just grant us 2 marks, and that's it. All right. All right. Okay, now we're in task A to C, and this is where the challenge in a database comes in. So we have to create a query, and then we're going to show the result in task A to C. And these are starting with the requirements that are not located in the UK or in the Euro. We got to make sure our data actually not show either these things, and then make sure that we have monthly classes. And then started classes in 2022. And if we head back to Microsoft Access, we can literally take a look at the data in the clients table where monthly is under payment method, location, or UK Euro is under the field called location, and year started is right here with the info. Now, we can go into create and select query design. And since our info is in under clients, we're going to add the table clients, and let's try adding those three fields that has the criteria that we have, which is location, payment method. I accidentally click on payment method, so I'm just going to select year started as the criteria. And the first thing that I want to change is under the location, because right here, by looking at the data, we don't want UK or Europe right up here. So we probably would like to see the data for others only. So others, what I would like to do in the criteria, I will just put in other instead. And here I go. And then the next criteria I would use pay monthly classes, which is the data here. I just want only one monthly. So I'm just going to put in monthly for the payment method as the criteria. And year started, I would just put 2022 or 2023 as the data to be accepted. Making sure I select show first so that I can actually run the data to check whether or not those info are being only featured, which is yes, other monthly, and 2022, 2023 is finally being featured based on this client's table. Now, with that being selected already, I will now proceed to go on to create the results by saving this as clients underscore query. Gonna right click this to save, and then I'm gonna save this as clients underscore query right here. Once that's being saved, I have the object being saved right there where I have the names being saved at the right side. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take a screenshot of this query and place it over in the evidence over here. Yeah, this right here where you have and I'm going to paste the evidence over in A2C, and you can see that there is screenshot, which means we need to add in a few more screenshots before I move on to the next question. So with the information and criteria being featured already, let's move on to the next one, which we need to show only these fields into the query design, which is client ID, initial client name, and year started. So let us go back to Access to do that. Client ID was the first one, then initial, and then client name, initial client name. And since we already have year started, I'm just going to just drag that towards to the end where this will be in order, and making sure we only show these things. So these two can be unchecked in the query result. And then the last thing to make sure is that client ID is under descending. And run that, you'll be able to see the results have 4 records, and you have the client ID of these future. All right, I'm going to go ahead to screenshot the results right here, and then paste them over to the evidence. And following that, save the evidence correctly because the question asks us so. And before I move on to task A to D, let me just show you the mark scheme, how this will be done correctly. So I'm going to paste here as an evidence, then you guys can compare side by side. Now, so based on the mark scheme, we can actually place in the criteria this way, where you have the or other monthly or 2023 is being accepted right over there. We can also place in future not UK or Europe base and in whatever style that we create, as long as we filter that. And since we actually done that, you can see that these is being placed, is in place, but the access can also done in the second row right over there, but I use this kind of a combined method that's also acceptable, as you can see right here, where the criteria markings can also be accepted. So we all have the three criteria already, so we do have 2 marks for the future result. Now, the results of the query, they do include a little bit of a screenshot. How does it look like in the results? But it doesn't really check whether your result is correct or not. But it just say correct fields, which you do have: client ID, initial, client name, and then the year started right there. So that gives us in 1 mark in any order. We in the results, I did not have anything else. And then the few orders is in correct order, which I do. And then that's 1 mark. And the client ID right here is under descending order. And I have 5/5 for this. All right. So that is how we can do task A to C. Great. So in task 2D, let's begin with this. It asks us to create a query first on the classes table. All right, so we're going to create a query, and these are the requirements before we actually create a table, and that means we need to filter. That includes where Clara is the instructor and costs £6. Now this is quite simple. Make sure we open up the classes table and observe what the data looks like. And here we can see that there is instructor and Clara is one of them. And then there's the cost right here for £6. That means we need to include the information of these. Now, when we do this, we can simply go to query design again, the same skill set that we have. Just make sure we don't get confused that we need to create the same query. It's a new query design where you select only the classes table. Don't select any other tables for now, for the time being. So select only the classes table. And for me, since we need to filter these things, let me just put in the instructor and the cost field so that we filter only Clara and then £6 only, which is these two values. If we run this, we should only have Clara and £6 in our run. And what we need to do immediately is to show class ID, day, title, and type. Class ID, day, class ID, day, title, and type. All right, so we do not need to show these into the results, so be sure to uncheck that and then sort the results of ascending order of class ID by selecting that. And then let's try to run whether or not our program is correct. Okay, we should have some of these info. I want to check whether or not this is just only Clara and £6. Yes, it is. So right now I'm going to go back to the design view and uncheck both of these. And then before moving and creating the report, let's save this as classes query. Okay, that's an object right there, and it's like, okay, we do have that over here over our program. Right, now we have finished creating the query, so right now we can go on ahead and proceed to create the report itself. And the report, simply just go in Access, the selected tab, Create, and select the report wizard instead. Now, this one, you have to make sure that this is a classes query and transfer everything to the selected fields. In this wizard, you can just simply go and select next to everything because we're not going to make changes to that. Now, if you want to, at the title, you can just simply select Clara's classes as instructor. I'm going to put this as a subtitle because it's more as Clara in her classes anyway. So I'm going to select finish. You can see that these information are being grouped together or inside of a report, for example. And now let's do this based on the list right here. So here we have a suitable title. I actually did that already in Access where I have the title. And the next thing I want to do is close the print preview and that ensure I go straight away and do this grouping. I group the report based on the field day. So I'm going to go to Access, select Add a Group, and then ensure that my data for the field is being grouped already. If I want to check that, I can go onto the layout view and can see that my info Saturday, Monday, Friday is being grouped together like that. Okay. Now, once that's being done, I can then go on to do the next thing. Whereas I can include an automated date at the top of the header. And then apply this over here by going to report, date and time, include a short date, and that header info is right there with the info. All right, that's being done already with this short date. I'm done with that. And now I have to make sure I showed only to required fields, which I did actually, which the class ID, date, title, and type, which was already done because we do that in the query. The next thing is to show the record sorted as required. Do we sort it out? Right now in the report, we have to make sure that we do so that the class ID is actually being sorted. It's the results we do because the query helped us with, but if you want to add an additional assurance, you can actually set that over at the bottom using the group insert, and then your data should have these being sorted out for you and grouped together. All right. Now, once that's done, you can be formatted so that the date field, time, field name, and date field stand out. This is simply just formatting here. Just head back to Access and ensure you can do that by going to the design view. Select either these things. You want to bold it or you want to create a little bit of a shading so that it stands out in your layout. Then it looks like that day, Friday, when they're being grouped together, you can see that it stands out in some ways. I don't know why this is important, but it's formatted to stand out that way. Now let's include the page number in the report header. Many of my students did not see the page, making sure that this one is actually in the header rather than the footer. So they have to actually go to the design view and make sure that they just select here, somewhere in the header, go transfer this whole thing to the top, and then you will have the page over in the header itself. And that's literally it after doing it. Okay, once we're done, let's save this as classes report. I created quite a lot of these, so I'm just gonna close this to delete these two, right? And then that for this one, I'm just gonna name this as close this first because naming this is it's needs to be closed. So I'm gonna rename this as classes report. Okay, and that's it. And then screenshot in design view showing that I have included the automated date in short date format in the header. Let's open up the report again, go into the design view as then I've actually done that. I'm just going to screenshot the entire report for now. Okay. And then place that over in the evidence, which is here. And next is to screenshot the print view to show the page number, which is heading back into Access, going into the report. I think this one. Yeah, report in print view, sorry, print preview, and we can show that here in the screenshots. Okay, paste that. I have two screenshots for this question because they ask us to show a design and print view and then resave the evidence. All right, so with that, we are done with A to D. I'm just gonna try screenshotting next to the mark scheme to show you the difference. Gonna paste this right here to see how we can mark this, right? This ensuring that we um, have the results and see what we have accomplish. Right, so the two reports as being placed into the evidence. This is what actually the examiner will go through, and then they will mark. Now, you will see that the mark scheme has a different design than yours. Now, we have the mark scheme. Now, this is where confusion comes in, but I think it makes really, really small difference as long as we reference to Clara and we do have £6, which is fine. We do have we do have that. But if you want to make sure in the future, just make sure your title reference to that to your information correctly. The mark scheme does give us a little bit of an idea how they are accepting that. And then as long as our title is suitable, I think that should be fine. And you can also observe that the results of the design for the mark scheme is also different as well. I checked with other teachers, they also have their own design, but in the question, they didn't really tell us what kind of design it should be and tell us that we should design in a way. But if you want to figure out how to do that over as per how the mark scheme asks you to, that's simply easy. I can go back to the client's classes query right there that we create for this report. And at the report wizard, we transfer everything. We make sure that this is grouped right over here. And then we can select the class ID and select outline. Make sure that we write the exact Clara classes that cost £6. £6. I do not have the pounds there on my US keyboard. Okay, so if I just select finish, now this is the design that we saw just now over here in the mark scheme. This is as per the outline design. Now you don't have to worry that you created this, but this is literally how the mark scheme actually does this. And I have to say that the question did not even tell us that we should select an outline design, which I think is still fine, even though the mark scheme gives us a different results right there in here. Now, as long as we group by the day, which we did, okay, if you see this screenshot here, we do have group by the day, and we do have the automated report and the order, because we do have class ID, date, title, and type already. We also sort this out in the ascending order of the class ID, which is right over here. And we do have date, field, name, and value standout. We literally color it, as you see there. And then we have correct 6 records, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 already been selected, included that the page number is right at the top. We have all of these. Now there are in different interpretation of how these two will be graded, but I believe as per the question that we do as we group it and then we do include Clara as the title, we should be able to gain 2 scores. We'll see. All right. Other than that, let's move on to the next question. It's the last one for the practical, which is a very simple step where you just create the relationships between the 3 tables. That is really, really, really easy to do by simply go on to the database tool, select relationships, double click all the 3 tables right over there. And how do we create the relationship in the table? By simply linking to the correct primary keys of the table, which is really straightforward. Select this here, classes, class ID, towards here because we're going to link and make sure that the relationship use the class ID's primary key and link to the other field that has that. And we join that, making sure that enforce referential integrity, which means that we do not want to have a duplicated info. So we need to make sure we click that. And then because it's used another person, that means I did not close this. I had to make sure I closed the other tables before I move on. That means that this needs to be saved. Just close everything and save first. Bad habit. I should actually do it. Anyway, so just link that, click enforce referential integrity. And this is also the same thing. It should be linking to the primary keys of each. So here, class ID link to class ID, client ID link to client ID to create relationship of the primary keys together. And once that's done, save this as save the database, the entire database by selecting that, take a screenshot of these and put it into the evidence file over here, which is the Word evidence, A to E, and paste it there for your work. Once that's done, save your evidence. Don't forget that. And then the last one will ask you to answer a few questions. Now, these ones, I have the mark scheme for you where you can take a look over here where A to F1, state one field that has a primary key, just any of these: booking ID, class ID, and client ID. If you don't know the answer, whenever questions here, you can actually see that primary key is being assigned and you just need to state one of them there. All right. Now, after this, you will be able to see the next question is saying state one reason why primary key is used in a database is to uniquely identify a record in a table. And then we have the last one, explain why reason a lookup list has been used on the instructor field in the classes table. This is just to reduce the error and to making sure that there are only 4 instructors to choose from rather than typing them in. Or you can say it saves time and there are only 4 instructors to choose from rather than typing them in. All right. That's all. Congratulations. I know it's really long, but you have done it and learning how to do Microsoft Access database. Congratulations and good luck.